This is the story of Dr. Sebi, or Alfredo Darrington Bowman, who was a self-proclaimed herbalist healer, claiming that you could heal every possible disease you could think of naturally, even AIDS. You might think that is ludicrous, which many people, including the US government, thought it was. But in the end, he not only managed to convince everyone, but also won it in court. I know you must be thinking, well, how did he do it? Stick around till the end as we answer these questions and more as we get into the various intricacies surrounding Dr. Sebi and his amazing legacy. Without further ado, let us begin. Before we talk about his stunning story, let me give you all a brief introduction about the man. Alfredo Darrington Bowman, better known as Dr. Sebi, was born in 1933 in Honduras. His journey into herbal healing began at a young age, as his grandmother did traditional practices using herbs. Later on, when he encountered issues such as asthma and visual impairment, he had to undergo treatment, but to no avail. Later, he claimed that these so-called Western treatments didn't work and visited a herbalist in Mexico to get himself checked. As it turned out, the herbalist claimed that Dr. Sebi was dying. Well, that was the last straw. Seeing no viable solution, Sebi immediately started his own healing practice in Honduras and started to come up with his own healing methods. I know you all must be wondering, what are these amazing healing methods that later captured the attention of the world? For starters, he developed a treatment that he called African bioelectric cell food therapy. I know that sounds like something someone living in a fantasy would say, but Sebi promoted it and claimed that it could cure a wide range of diseases, including cancer and AIDS, as well as a variety of chronic conditions and mental illnesses. And as you will later find out, it did have proven results as testified by many people.
What I've done was to discontinue anything that had glucose. Glucose is the underlying enemy. Whenever you indulge in glucose, it would be difficult to lose fat. Mm-hmm. I live in Honduras.
Yes.
Okay, and California. In Honduras, I discovered a plant known as Cusca.
Okay.
Cusca is a plant that the Maya used to use. Mm-hmm. And they used another one known as the teosinte.
Okay.
I eat those plants. Those plants doesn't have starch or glucose. Uh-huh. You will look at your body losing weight and you're going to get frightened.
Given the lack of herbal treatments at the time and Dr. Sebi's results, slowly he started to make a name for himself. Seeing that the real money lay in the States, where he knew people would be willing to give money for such unconventional treatments, he set up a center in La Ceiba, Honduras in 1980 and started to market his herbal products in the States, and slowly started to make a name for himself in the American market. But that is not the main reason why he became so popular in the States. As you all know, AIDS hit the world in the 1980s and caused a lot of panic in the world. An epidemic had started in the United States, and amid all the confusion and the chaos, people were desperate for a cure or something hopeful to latch onto. Dr. Sebi claimed that his herbal remedies could cure it, and it even resulted in signs of recovery.
Men could do it. Other men could do it. Any man could do it. What I did was to depart from the usual diet that most men indulges, changing the diet, because remember, I was impotent. I was impotent at 30. Mm-hmm. How was it that I could have been impotent at 30 and I'm making babies in my 80s?
A whole lot of viewers out there want to know.
Sure. But see what happened, the information that I got in 1964, many brothers and sisters may not have received that message yet.
And that message is what?
That message came from a Mexican. The message was showing gene food consistency, meaning your cellular predisposition determines what you should eat. Uh-huh. So when I went to Mexico, I had already traveled to Russia. I was in St. Petersburg. I was in London. I've been to Spain. I've been to many places in Africa. I was asthmatic. I was impotent. I had diabetes. I was in fact crazy. I was placed in an insane asylum in New Jersey in 1961. Schizophrenia and paranoia. So I'm schizophrenic, paranoia, I'm impotent, I'm diabetic, I'm asthmatic from birth. So I go to Mexico.
Yeah.
And the man asked me, where are you from? I said, I am from Honduras.
Yeah.
He said, we cannot talk. I said, why? Because black folks doesn't come from Honduras.
Okay.
Maya come from Honduras. Maya and Paya and Lenca.
Yeah.
So where you from? Oh, I'm from Africa. Now we talking. Now because you are from Africa, do you believe that God was drunk when he put black people in Africa? I said, no. Well, do you believe that he put a diet there for you? I said, sure. And what's the diet? Rice and beans and potatoes and yams and cows and hogs and lamb. He said, not so. That's not the diet of an African. What is the diet of an African? He said, the same as the Toltec and the Olmec. All that which is native. But I didn't know these things because I was a Muslim.
Okay.
You know, I was in Islam. I love Islam.
Yes.
Islam gave me a whole lot of good things. I mean, I met Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
I met the messenger, talking to him like I'm talking to you.
Okay.
But the messenger's information at the time needed a little bit more help. So he told me that I could not eat meat any longer, no lamb.
Yeah.
I could not drink any milk.
Yeah.
And
So
I abstained from all these things, and here I am now at 82. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
Now, this really boosted his sales, but this also caught the attention of the New York Attorney General for false advertising, as curing AIDS seems impossible, doesn't it? I mean, if anyone would claim that, I am sure legally everyone would assume it was false advertising. On top of all that, the New York Attorney General also disputed his practicing of medicine without a license. Of course, these accusations really hurt Dr. Sebi's business and legacy at the time, and many people thought he was nothing but a scam. But as it turned out, it became the opportunity for him to prove to the world that he indeed was not lying and is indeed a master of what he does.
How did you learn to do these things, one? And I would say, and I think we have something that we'll end up showing on the screen here, regarding in 1979, I think it was, you were charged in New York City with practicing medicine without a license. You were ultimately charged, indicted, and taken before the New York Supreme Court. And I would advise my viewers who might be questioning your authenticity that you won that case. Now, so the charge was practicing medicine without a license and claiming that you had a remedy to cure AIDS, cancer, and diabetes. So the question is, how did you win that case against what some people say are the toughest prosecutors in the land?
Well, it was 1987.
87, not 79,
The
87.
10th of February.
Okay.
My mother knew they were coming. When I told my mama that I had cured my 13 AIDS patient, she said, they're gonna get you. They're gonna get you.
Like most cases involving medicinal drugs, this one brought against him by the FDA required him to substantiate his claims with evidence. I am sure they thought that there was no way that he could prove his innocence. And no, folks, they were not looking for medical reports alone. The court demanded that Dr. Sebi provide a patient for each disease he claimed to cure, accompanied by medical documentation from licensed doctors proving they had the disease and subsequent documentation showing they were cured. As you can imagine, the odds were stacked against him. However, Dr. Sebi, being the genius he is, was not going to give up that easily. He planned and made sure he assembled a good defense with proper proof. Given his large clientele, it was not hard for him to find people who had actually improved as a result of his practices. But the best thing about his defense is that he chose to represent himself. Goes on to show what an amazing man he was. He presented 70 witnesses according to the official court records, each providing the required medical documentation. Yes, folks, you heard that correctly. I am talking about 70 individual cases. These witnesses testified that after undergoing Dr. Sebi's treatment, which involved dietary changes and herbal supplements, they were cured of their ailments. If that does not prove his legitimacy, I don't know what does. In the end, this overwhelming evidence led the court to rule in his favor. This was a big victory for Dr. Sebi, as it lawfully proved that he was indeed not a scam, and led to even more sales for him as his business expanded. Besides judging him as not guilty, the judge also concluded that his herbal products were essentially food and not medicine, and since he wasn't diagnosing patients, he wasn't practicing medicine illegally. This landmark victory significantly boosted his credibility and public profile, proving many of his doubters wrong. The fact he represented himself against the U.S. legal system and managed to win just shows his confidence in himself. More importantly, it set the stage for herbal products to be used as medicines, as people learned the importance of them towards our health.
In the tiny village, Lisa sought guidance for body and soul from an herbal guru named Dr. Sebi.
Dr. Sebi, according to him, can cure anything. Everything from trying to lose weight to, looking for a cure for AIDS. People go there with hopes and dreams that Dr. Sebi can somehow save them.
She had been through so many intense problems in her career and in her life and in her personal life that she didn't know where to turn. And this doctor, she said, had shown her how to really open up and cleanse all of the negativity out of her.
She told me she was suffering with alcoholism and that she was smoking excessively, cigarettes, drinking and smoking. She asked me, what do I need to do to stay on the side of peace? I said, fast, do what Jesus did. She said, what did Jesus do? He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights.
Midway through her 40-day ordeal, an obviously gaunt Lisa spoke with MTV News.
I've been polluting my body for 30 years. 40 days is not a long time to me to fast. 40 days represents overcoming death. It's the number of days that Jesus fasted for, and I kind of feel like I'm on a journey sometimes. Don't really know quite where I'm headed.
At the ending of the fasting, she came to me. I heard the door opening at 2 o'clock in the morning. She said, I completed my fast this morning. I said, what did you see? I saw God. She said, I'm going to make you famous. I said, how? Because I'm going to talk about you. Does everyone know you cure AIDS and cancer?
There's just a lot of people in the world who are suffering. They're sick. They're not happy. They're looking for answers. They don't know where to turn. Well, I know a man who's been curing AIDS since 1987. This guy has taught me a lot, and I need to share my knowledge, with the world.
By now, I am sure you all know about Dr. Sebi's story and how he made his legacy by overcoming the odds, competing against the ones who doubted him, which included the U.S. legal system, and showing the world that herbal treatments do work. Before we talk about what happened after his infamous legal victory, let us talk about his personal life. Unlike most people, Dr. Sebi had a rather unconventional personal life. Did you know he was married 4 times? I mean, I would applaud the man, as it is pretty difficult to marry twice, let alone 4 times. Let us now talk about these 4 lucky women. First of all, we have Melba Jean Bowman. She was the first of the 4 and was the first legal wife, whom he married somewhere in the 1950s. She remained loyal and his legal wife throughout the duration of his life, both during his highs and his lows. However, his second wife, Ma'a, was arguably more important. She played a very important part in his healing journey. As you all know, Dr. Sebi had a lot of health complications and would not have been able to go through them without the assistance of Ma'a. The two married around 2 decades after his marriage, roughly in the 1970s. She was rather influential in his life, and according to various reports, she was the one that led to his name being Dr. Sebi in the States. Next up, we have Annette Thomas, who met Dr. Sebi in St. Croix when she was attending one of his speaking engagements. She was already in awe of the man due to his vast knowledge of herbal medicine. As a result, she became deeply involved in his work. Well, one thing led to another, and soon the two connected and fell in love. They later married and moved back to the United States in the 1980s. Lastly, we have Patsy Williams. She was his fourth wife, and in the late 1990s or early 2000s, as we do not have exact proof of when she traveled all the way to Dr. Sebi's Usha village in Honduras. Her dedication towards him obviously made an impression, and as a result, the two married. However, unlike the previous wives, she was the one who ended her relationship with him on bad terms. Apparently, the two had a fallout over an alleged theft. Little is known regarding the exact details surrounding the two, but according to reports, he did not completely end it with her. In fact, did you know that despite his multiple marriages, Dr. Sebi maintained relationships with all his wives, and they each played significant roles in his personal and professional life? Now, as you can imagine, the fact he had so many romantic relationships, these were often cited by critics to tarnish his reputation. But as they say, haters will hate. Dr. Sebi rose above the hate and did not say much regarding these disgusting allegations. The fact that his family and supporters viewed them as part of his complex, charismatic persona was enough for him. If you thought that 4 wives were a lot, did you know he had 17 children? According to reports, he really loved his children and treated them well. His children did a lot in promoting his message and teaching, and they also played a huge part in further expanding his business and kept it running even in Sebi's afterlife.
I mean, there's not a disease that can't be cured.
Okay.
In today's time. Now, like my grandfather always said, we have the tools to help you get cured, but if you don't have the faith and if you don't believe that the herbs is going to heal you, then it's not going to heal you.
Oh, wow.
It starts with faith. With you, we have the tools to give you the minerals to heal you, but if you don't take minerals and if you don't have faith, then it's not going to heal you. But the herbs are healing a nation, and we save lives every day. So, you know, to my Atlanta family that's listening, if you have any STDs, diabetes, high blood pressure. I heard they've
been coming in with the herpes cases.
Yes, herpes right now is at its all-time high.
Miss Kellie, don't look at me like that.
Let's
I
get
don't
healthy.
want it. I need people to get healed,
you know, for the culture.
That you can be healed for the culture, because I don't want to run into it.
No, you don't. And right now, when we was coming up, Shanika, we had the Wrap It Up campaigns. You know, condoms was accessible in high schools. They don't have that anymore. You know, these kids glorify sex and think it's okay. And I have 17-year-old kids with herpes or 19-year-old young boys with HIV and caught it from 26-year-old men. So it's really serious. We really have to protect ourselves. And wrap it up. It's about having safe sex. It's not. I'm not saying don't have it, but wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
And if you in Atlanta and you want to pick up any products, hit up at Sebi's Daughters. Hit up at Dietary Solutions, at Avery Mitchell, and let's get Atlanta healthy.
Now that you know all about Dr. Sebi, his rise to fame and respect, and his rather colorful personal life, let us talk about his downfall. After he won his infamous case against the U.S. legal system, one would think that the sky's the limit for him now. However, that's when things started to take a turn for the worse. It all started in 2004 when he started treatment on Michael Jackson. Yes, the king of pop. This should not be surprising, as he had already made a huge name for himself and had a rather influential clientele.
I went to see him, and he said he was in agreement with me traveling with him. And I told him that I would be able to help him. He couldn't sleep. He was in a very bad emotional state.
What time frame, what time period was this? Do you remember?
2004.
Okay.
I was with him from February until September.
Of 2004.
At the ending of September, I told him, I said, you know, you're singing, you feel good, you're looking good, I'm leaving. He said, don't leave me. I said, why? He said, I want you by my side, but I have a business to build. But I love Michael. Michael's beautiful. Beautiful brother.
What did you do for him?
What I did for him was this. I gave Michael an intracellular chelation. An intracellular chelation means that I'm going to clean every cell that makes up every organ that total his biological structure. Because he was full of a whole lot of drugs, you know, the pharmaceutical drugs. Couldn't sleep. his nerve was shattered. So I began treating him.
Yeah.
And at the ending of the period, he was doing good, and I left.
Well, after working with Michael Jackson for 6 weeks, Dr. Sebi claimed to have helped the singer overcome his addiction to painkillers such as morphine and Demerol with the help of his African bioelectric cell food therapy. Now, this seemed plausible, as there was widespread news of Jackson being a drug addict and struggling with addiction. However, I don't know what happened between the two, but Jackson paid him only $10,000 for the treatment. Maybe it did not work for him, or he expected more, we cannot say for sure. But the two had agreed to around $380,000, and that is the exact amount of money Dr. Sebi sued Jackson owed for the treatment. But that's not all, as according to reports, he also sued him for an additional $600,000 for the money he missed out on other possible clients when he was treating Jackson. As you can imagine, this was a big scandal. Dr. Sebi was respected at the time, but it was not the wise move to go against the king of pop, who was obviously more influential than him. Jackson's team denied this lawsuit, saying that he had not received any proper professional treatment, and also mentioned that Jackson does not have any addiction issues. As you can imagine, things got ugly for both of them, as people started to doubt Dr. Sebi and his treatment, and Jackson's drug addiction issues. Before this case could be solved, however, Jackson passed away, and eventually the charge was dropped. But it surely ruined Dr. Sebi's image due to his bust-up with a beloved public figure who had just passed away. But that's just the first step towards his downfall. Things became bad to worse when Dr. Sebi and his associate Pablo Medina Gamboa were detained for money laundering in May 2016, leaving the country after they were found in possession of $37,000 in cash without any justification. Yes, arrested for having their own money on hand. However, eerily enough, despite being let go pending a court appearance, Sebi was rearrested on the same charges in Honduras. It almost felt like there was some agenda against him. He was imprisoned in Honduras for several weeks while his family fought for his release. Due to the money issue, it seemed that he was going to be locked up for a long time. But the worst thing is that there were no legal proceedings in Honduras for his capture. To this day, people have thought it was all targeted. Furthermore, as you all know, he has been suffering from health problems for a lot of years now, and as a result, his health quickly deteriorated behind bars. It was obvious that he was struggling, yet they did not provide any healthcare facilities to him. Despite the fact he and his family had complained due to the lack of first aid in jail, the authorities did not budge and let his health deteriorate. In the end, on August 6, 2016, he passed away from pneumonia-related complications while he was on the way to the hospital. As you can imagine, they delayed going to the hospital for advanced care right to the last second. It was too little too late for him. Of course, his family and followers were outraged, and as a result, contested that his death was because of his prolonged detention and that the prison setting played a role in his premature passing. Some of his loyal supporters believe he was murdered to suppress his alternative health practices, which they argue posed a threat to the pharmaceutical industry. This seems quite possible. Maybe his influence was becoming too much, and his competitors had influenced his capture so that his ideology and influence could be controlled. We will never know what exactly happened. What we do know is the fact that whatever they have done to subdue Dr. Sebi, his teaching and influence will always remain alive. In the end, I would just like to say that despite his rather sudden downfall, Dr. Sebi was hugely influential in the world of herbal treatments. He showed the value of herbal medicine and its power, as opposed to the conventional healthcare we use nowadays. To this day, people follow his methods and have yielded amazing results from it. Despite his passing, his teachings and herbal treatments continue to be propagated by his family and followers, maintaining his impact on holistic health practices. This is really important as it shows people the many possible ways one can take care of oneself. Whatever the controversy surrounding his death was, there is no doubt that his legacy extends beyond his controversial end, with mentions in popular culture by artists like Kendrick Lamar and plans for a documentary by the late Nipsey Hussle.
Are you big into the whole eating habits of Dr. Sebi, or is it just kind of like when you cleanse when you need to?
Well, nah, I just studied him once I got hip to what he was famous for doing, and I just listened to him talk and read his books and his papers, and I became a believer.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just based on what he was saying, my own intelligence kicked in. This is true. What he's saying is not a sales pitch, none of that. He's telling the truth. His formula, it made perfect sense. I can explain it to somebody now after watching him, because it's not no left field science. It's real simple if you really think about what he's saying.
Yeah.
So I tried, I started taking the products,
It worked.
For sure.
Immediately.
I was on tour. You know, you get tired, bro, doing shows and shows.
Shaking hands.
12 hours on the bus every day, eating out the gas station. So, you know, I start taking the products, and then I cut dairy out of my diet completely. That was one of the things he swear by. I ain't never went vegan, like no meat, and that's something he stresses, like a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm taking steps toward it. You know what I'm saying? So you playing with some pharmaceutical money, you know? And what's crazy, I'm working on doing a documentary on the trial in 1985 when Dr. Sebi went to trial against New York.
Right.
Because he put in the newspaper he cured AIDS.
Yeah. Did he
He beat the case. And he went to federal court the next day and beat that case on record.
Yep.
And nobody talk about it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of Dr. Sebi. Much love to him, and may his soul rest in peace.